wide-angle segment of the show. The first foreign visit by Prime Minister Modi in his third term has been to the G7 summit in Italy. G7 is a group of the 7 most industrialized nations, comprises of USA, UK, France, Italy, Canada, Japan and Germany. India is not a member of the G7, but it is a special invitee to the summit. But this isn't the first time that India has been invited to the G7. In May 2023, when the summit was held in Hiroshima in Japan, India was an invitee. Before that, in 2022, when Germany was the host country, India was an invitee. In 2021, UK as the host invited India as a special guest. And in 2019, France extended a special invitation to India. In effect, India is a permanent special invitee to the G7 summit. G7 cannot ignore India. It cannot ignore India's opinion. As a responsible power, India is the leader of the global south. It is the world's largest democracy and the growth engine of the global economy. In fact, the Indian economy is now bigger than Canada, UK, France, Italy. That's 4 out of the 7 countries that make up the G7. India's economic might is a compelling enough reason for New Delhi to be included in G7. It's time G7 should become G8 with India as a permanent member. Increasingly, with the UN Security Council unable to address deadlocks between US on one end and Russia and China on the other, it is the G7 that has become the primary vehicle to navigate global political upheavals. And since China continues to block India's entry into the UN Security Council, entry into the G7 will ensure its rightful place. But it's not just economic power. India's growing military might is another reason to be inducted into the G7 to make it G8. India is the 3rd highest military spender in the world. And lastly, a new G8 with India as a permanent member will also be at the forefront of addressing climate change that disproportionately hurt poorer countries, particularly those in Asia and Africa that the industrialized Western countries have no idea or have limited idea about. In fact, take a look at what all has India achieved at the G7 as a special invitee in the last several years.
Prime Minister Modi's visit to the G7 summit is the 11th time India is attending the G7 summit. 5 of which have been under the Modi administration since 2019. So why has a group of developed industrialized countries invited India year after year? Take a look of what India has brought to the G7 table in the past 5 years. In 2019, at the Environment Session, Prime Minister Modi brought India's sustainability efforts to the fore. India highlighted its drive to eliminate single-use plastic, conserve water and focus on solar energy. Since G7 does not have representation of countries struggling with poverty, environment and other challenges, India's solutions offered opportunities for poorer countries with solutions that they could emulate. In 2021, as the world battled the COVID pandemic, PM Modi spoke about One Earth, One Health. India's call for global unity, leadership and solidarity to prevent future pandemics resonated with all other members. India emphasized the responsibility that democratic and transparent societies have in ensuring the world is better prepared and equipped to handle future global health risks. As the Ukraine conflict skyrocketed energy prices, it pinched poor countries the most. India advocated for the rights of poor countries to get energy at affordable prices. As the voice of the global south, PM Modi urged G7 nations to think not just for their interests and ensure energy access is not the privilege of only the rich. As the Ukraine conflict raged on, India stressed on the need for dialogue and diplomacy to resolve conflicts. As the leader of the world's biggest democracy, PM Modi highlighted the importance of addressing conflicts from a humanitarian view than just a political or economic prism.
We live in times of war. Since the end of Cold War in 1991, the world hasn't experienced a more violent time than now, with countries waging war over each other for months and years without any signs of it ending anytime soon. But disturbingly, it's not just countries that are at war with each other. It is the ever-growing rise of non-state actors that is now a worrying trend. From terrorism to drug cartels, it is the non-state actors that are now the biggest security threat to mankind. Add to this transnational actors or terrorist organizations like ISIS that operate in many geographies across continent, making this world a very dangerous place. Now, as per the Peace Research Institute of Oslo, 59 armed conflicts took place worldwide last year, led by the wars in Ukraine and Gaza. And it was Africa that topped the list with 28 conflicts, followed by Asia with 17 and the Middle East with 10. Europe recorded 3 conflicts in 2023. But this is just part of the story, because while the number of conflicts grew, the number of countries that experienced it declined from 39 to 34, indicating concentration of tension and war in fewer countries. The PRIO report shows that the conflict landscape is now becoming increasingly complex, with more actors operating within the same country. 2023 was the third most violent year since 1989, only to be surpassed by 2021 and 2022. And in fact, in 2023, battle-related deaths from conflict stood at a whopping 122,000. In the past 3 years, there's been a dramatic increase in battle deaths due to 3 main reasons. One, the civil war in the Tigray region in Ethiopia. Second, the Russia-Ukraine conflict. And thirdly, the Gaza bombings after Hamas attacked Israel. Now, violence due to conflicts by organizations and terror entities not related to any government has also seen a significant increase, and most importantly for the Americas. For the first time, Latin America is now home to the greatest number of non-state conflicts, numbering 36. These are gang wars. These are drug cartels that are heavily armed and are fighting with each other. This is most acute in Brazil and Mexico. And according to this study, these drug cartels, notorious for running parallel governments, have made Mexico the most violent country in terms of non-state violence. A woman has come to head Mexico. It is only hopeful, and I am hopeful, that some of these statistics could change for Mexico. But these statistics are alarming, and it is the lack of concerted action that is truly shocking. Non-state actors are terror groups. They're operating with impunity and are now the biggest threat to countries, societies, and people. And it's time governments are made accountable for the safety of their people.